ያው كمان ሰው ሰማዕትና ናይ ደማንት ቋንቋ ያው በእንግሊዝኛ እና ከነ መሐላለፈኩም አሕዋት አጋይሽ በቃ አረጋሽ አንተናልና ኢና አሁና አማኑኤል استنى نطلع في نسمعكم سكابسس بدل مساوس كازاتو نسمع مو تعاون عن اللي احنا عطينا
اوكي
All right. Well, welcome. Good evening. This is Cyber Far of Tigray, English Broadcasting. Tonight, our special guest is Emmanuel. He has some very unique and interesting stories that we'll be discussing about. Obviously, I would say that there's no other person that I know of that would know more about the crisis in Tigray, the crisis that caused the war in Tigray from the Eritrean side. He has been trained. He's a trained soldier within the Eritreans, and he left Eritrea through Tigray, and currently he resides in Canada. So the goal tonight is we will broadcast in English. Then for those of you who are Tigrinya speaking, we will take a short break. At the end of the segment, we'll give you heads up. Then we will switch into Tigrinya. Primarily, he's discussed to me that there are many instances that the emotional aspect of the details of the war, it's easier to describe in Tigrinya than it would otherwise be in English. So that would be one of the reasons why I decided to do a second segment in Tigrinya. So with that being said, I'm going to briefly mention in Tigrinya what I just say in English so that our audience, those who are Tigrinya speaking, understands what I just say. ኩራት ተኸታተልና በመጀመርታ ናብ ሳይበር ፓወር ትግራይ እንኳዕ ደሓን መጻኹም ለማዓንቲ ሒዝናዮ ቀሪብና ዘለና ጋሻና ኣማኑኤል ይበሃል ኤርትራዊ ሓውና እዩ ኣብ ካናዳ ዝነብር ናይ ኤርትራ ውትድርና ሰልጢኑ ሰርቪስ ንኤርትራ ሃገረ ኢሉ ዝሃበ ኣብ መጨረሻ ግን ጭቆናን መከራን ምስ በዝሐ ብትግራይ ገይሩ ናብ ወፃኢ ሃገር መፅኡ ዝነብር ሰብ ኢና ብዙ ብሳይበር ፓወር ትግራይ እናተኸታተለና ጸኒሑ ሕዚ ናቱ ሓሳባት ከቐርብ እዩ ቀሪቡና ዘሎ ለማዓንቲ. So we are going to switch into English. Emmanuel, thanks again. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers and tell us a brief story of your life, how you got out of Eritrea, and the struggle and what you saw in Tigray, and you currently reside in Canada. We're not going to specify the city, but at least we know that you're in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for followers too. Thank you for the opportunity. I was one of your followers. Now I decided to be a person to contribute what I know. This is my personal experience and my personal opinion. I am not a member of any organization, and all what I say, I'm responsible for it. So I would like to start it that way.
Very good.
I was raised and actually born and raised in Eritrea in Adhuala, and finished up to high school in Adhuala. When I was grade 10, for personal health conditions, I did interrupt my school, so I didn't finish. After 1 year, I decided to go back to school, but I was refused, even though I had extreme desire for school. Then they told me I had to finish national service, then to ask school. I did go to Sawa in a second round in 1995 up to 1996. I finished in national service. After 6 months of training, I was chosen to be a trainer So the rest of my training for 1 year, I ended up being one of the trainers.
Military training, that is.
Yeah, I was a military trainer. After I finished the whole 18 months, I went back to my life. Then, since I did interrupt my school, I asked back to get back to school according to what they told me to finish my national service, then to get back to school. But I was refused to get back to school too. And the reason was because the Minister of Education sent them a circular saying that anybody who got participated in national service not to get back to school. Even though I finished my duties, I wasn't getting my rights. Fortunately,
so you did your 18-month of military training service for your country, and you tried to become to civilian life to get to further your education, but then you were denied after the fact, after you had served your military, which is 18 months.
Exactly. Fortunately, I was one of the top students, so the teachers knew about me, and everybody was so sad. Finally, I asked the principal to pass my concern into the committee. After going back and forth, I asked them. I was in that school every day for about 2 months. Finally, he passed that into the committee, and the committee passed my concern in 100%. They let me in. So I finished till grade 11. After I finished grade 11, that year was 1998. The government had a plan for war, which we didn't know. So what they did was, there was 4 rounds of national service, went back to their life after finishing the national service. Then they called us back, the four rounds for summer service. That was, I think, for forestation. But actually behind it wasn't forestation. It was a planned war against Ethiopia. As soon as they got us in control, they declared that there is going to be a war, that Guyana has invaded our territories, and they have a plan to invade us. We believed them. We didn't have any doubt.
So even though, so you guys didn't know that Eritrea, so to clarify to the audience, I'm going to step in real quick, but I think what Emmanuel is talking about is 20 years ago, Ethiopia and Eritrea went to war for 2 years between 1998 and 2000. It was one of the deadliest war that has ever registered in the history of Africa. 70 to 80,000 troops have died from both sides. That's an estimated number. So what he's describing is when they were called in, the Eritrean government told the Eritrean military and personnel that the Tigray people are invading Eritrea, even though Eritrea actually had invaded most of the Tigray territory, that including areas that were actually not disputed, and was building bunkers and all kinds of things for about 7 years. So you guys have no idea that Eritrea, in fact, actually not only had occupied Tigray territories, but the U.S. and Algeria actually had asked Eritrea to not do that. And in fact, Isaias Afwerki had said, removing Eritrean militaries from Tigray territory, this is 20 years ago, is like, he used an example in Tigrinya, we'll talk about it in Tigrinya later, but in English is that it is saying, if Ethiopia has the power to remove Eritrean troops from the territory that Eritrea took over, it is saying that the sun, once the sun is down, that it will never come back out again, which then we know later that was actually a delusional statement. But so you guys, my question for you is, so you and the rest of the Eritrean fighters had no idea that there was actually another troop that have already entered into Tigray and actually were occupying Tigray territory?
Well, actually, everything has started after they called us in. We were on their hand at that moment. So what they said is, this is how it started. They said that we sent 10 high post military leaders to solve the conflicts between the farmers around Bademe, and they killed them. And they started war. This is the war they started, and then now they are planning to fight against us. They have the plan to control Eritrea. But actually, it was a lie. From what I hear from the Jobha fighters, Shabia did hand over Bademe long time ago to TPLF. Since then, it was under administrations of TPLF. Why did they even start to send in this 10 high post officials? We don't even know. Was it even true or not? We don't even have a clue until this moment. We don't really know. But anyways, they started war. They distributed us half in Bademe and half in Zalambesa. I was in the front of Zalambesa. So first war started in Bademe, then we started the second one in Zalambesa. There was no military, there was no prepared military in Ethiopian side. There was only the militia. The militia had just been sitting there. So we started that war. We defeated those militias. Then they left Zalambesa. They didn't stop. They went down to the Fatsi mountains. Then we occupied Zalambesa. Actually, we destroyed Zalambesa. I remember there was a school. We took off all the covers, the ceilings, the roof. And then we built our fortifications and stuff. There was nobody saying no. We were actually told to take them off. We didn't have any feeling when I remember it back, and it is devastating. I always think about that and then say, you know what? Once you convince somebody that somebody is his enemy, doesn't have a mercy, is that the way we human beings act? That's a big question for me. I've been reading so much about, finding out why we do what we do.
And so what was going through your mind when you guys saw your fellow soldiers falling next to you and not even have the proper burials, and when soldiers also slaughtering just like civilians? There's wars of engagement, and I know that you're not representing the Eritreans, but during that fighting, the ethnic Tigrinya speaking on both sides, Eritrea and Tigray, what was going through your mind? How are you able to live through all that and to come out and to be willing to speak about it?
You know what? When you just talk about it right now, it doesn't really make sense. But in that moment, when you stain somebody being your enemy, you don't feel it. What it starts to change your mind is, do you call somebody your enemy? Then it's done.
So you guys had no doubt or no question when they told you that Eritrea was being invaded, therefore you have to defend Eritrea by all means necessary. You guys had no doubt, no question.
That's it. That's how it was. I didn't see any mercy, any feeling from anybody. That was the soldiers around my side. I think
so
that's
what happens if you guys ask questions saying like these can't be true when you see like people that are being just like chopped off? Is that it's cruelty, you know? And so I know that you didn't participate in the war that's going on right now, but what you see right now, what's happening right now, what does that remind you of?
real bad. Really bad. Once you get out of it, you come into your conscious mind. What was I doing? It is really bad. In that moment, actually, it wasn't as bad as it is right now, because that war was between the militia fighters and us. And I didn't see anybody hurting civilians in that moment. I didn't witness anybody hurting the civilians. The civilians just left because there was war in that area, and they went to Adigrat. But I didn't see anybody hurt. The war was just between military to military. Now this is between
Did you guys
military.
know? Sorry, did you guys know that actually there was a civilian attack in Adigrat and in Mekelle? Actually, then they attacked the pharmaceutical in Adigrat, and then they bombed a school in Mekelle. Actually, the Eritrean Air Force. Did you guys knew about it?
We knew, yeah, the bombing in Mekelle. But I think what we were thinking for that was there was a bombing in Azamara airport in that moment. So what we took is just it is a bombing revenge. They were saying it was in the schools and stuff, but you don't believe it. Just you think like because they are enemies, they just broadcasting propaganda. So you got to really see it to believe it. And being in that state of mind, I don't think we had a clue. But when I say this, seeing back 20 years, what kind of information do we have? We didn't really have much information. We were listening what we were being casted. Whatever was being broadcasted with one television and one radio. And also, Eritrean people, me as an Eritrean, we worshipped Shabia. I think it is because we didn't know any other alternative governments in that moment. What we know is Derg. So the comparison was between Derg and between our government.
So
and
what?
that lack of experience, it didn't enlighten our mind. We didn't even ask our rights. We were doing whatever we are told to do. See? The difference right now is almost a quarter of the country is in diaspora. We should open our eyes.
Eritreans are like out of the country for the most part.
For the most part.
And is that so? And so I'm going to get to that. But so what led you to leave the country Eritrea, and where did you go from Eritrea?
Well, actually, we've been discussing one part of my story. I was in Zalambesa in that moment. After about 3 months, in September, I was admitted to university. So I was a university student. I left the military and then went back to university. Then in 2000, we had conflict with the government, the university students. And that conflict was very minor. we asked our rights. There was a little fund from the European universities, I think from European Union or whatever. It was donated to the university and it was allocated to the students. And the government wanted us to go to a service for no pay. Finally decided to pay us $800, but we know how much was given. So there was argument and disagreement. We disagreed for what they planned for us. They said summer service. No, we said we all have finished summer services for its plan. We don't need to go for summer service, but we could do whatever you give us, whatever comes for that program only.
Sure.
Anyways,
so
there was
disagreement.
disagreement. Let's take it as disagreement.
Okay.
Then the university president himself went to the TV station and he conducted an interview denying the reality. He absolutely lied against us. He incited the military, saying that your brothers are this university students are undermining you by saying that they're refusing to work for summer service for $800, but you guys are working for nothing, defending your country for nothing. He initiated them, and they were ready to attack us. They brought in one brigade, and they surrounded us.
And how many is that in number?
Most likely about 500.
Okay, 400 to 500.
Yeah. They surrounded us.
Just kind of the audience understands, because some of those military languages, I want to make sure that our audience understands what we're talking about.
Yeah. They surrounded us, and then they were ready. As the same as we were ready to fight in the military, they were ready to whatever punishment to cause for us. If you were resisting, I believe they could have killed us.
So what did you do when you know the threat was coming? Is that when you left the country?
So in that moment, most of the university students, they went to that program. What they said is they collected us. They collected the university students. They sent them into Wia. That was brutal weather. I think 2 university students died in there. I left. I didn't go there. I went to Aduhala, back to my town.
For service, or you just left the school?
I left the school and I went back to my home.
Okay.
I decided from that moment, I decided not even to go to school.
But I decided how did they let you out?
Oh no, it wasn't. It was okay. I could have.
Okay.
It wasn't tough. So I went back. I stayed in my town, and I was very fortunate that the polices, I found them, the national service polices, were the policies that, the national service that I trained them myself when I was in Sawa. So I found friends in there. So I had a hiding spot. So I was lucky that I wasn't even taken away, because I was spending most of my time with those national service guys. That
providing
way,
training services to them, to the new military.
No, that's police of the town, Aduhala. Some of the guys who were police in that town were my trainees when I was in Sawa. So they treated me good, and I was fine and secure. But as the guys went back to school after finishing that punishment, I didn't have the permission to get back to school because I didn't get punished. So I went to Massawa. I worked in Massawa for a while, so and so. And then they planned another punishment. Then I went there and I got back to the university. It's a little bit small stories. But finally, I decided that this school is not going to make any difference to my life if that is the fate of what is coming to me. I started consciously to think what is coming up. Finally, I decided that, you know what? I'm not going to have any chance in this country. I couldn't see any positive outlooks of the country from that moment. Then I decided to go anywhere possible. I didn't even know.
That's a risk, right? Because if you're caught, most likely you're going to get a jail or killed.
Exactly.
And how many, like roughly how many, if the door was open, how many within the military, within civilians in Eritrea would actually leave the country and not return?
Almost all.
What percentage?
Almost all.
So if there was an opportunity to live Eritrea, most Eritreans would rather get out of the country. I mean, it is that bad.
Even now, they will leave. That's how it is. But in that moment, since there was an outlook of the outside, maybe few. Because even myself, when I crossed because Adwala is not far from the border of Tigray, it wasn't such difficult for me to decide that to cross the border and safely to reach Tigray. There was possibilities that I could get caught or killed, but it was very, very likely that I could reach. But even if I reach Tigray, I didn't know that there was a camp. So I didn't know even my fate. I didn't know. After I left and I came to Canada, you can't believe how many people has left the country.
So before you talk about Canada, let's take a step back real quick. So what happened when you crossed the border? How did you get transported to the refugee camp, and what was the reaction for you in Tigray? Because you describe how you guys in the military in Eritrea, you were told that Tigray, are there to kill you, are there to destroy us, meaning destroy Eritrea. So you have that fear, you have that propaganda to the military in Eritrea, but you realize also the propaganda internally as you became more educated in Eritrea, you come to realize it was a false propaganda. But what was it like for you when you got to Tigray?
Mike, this is even the most important thing that is initiating me to talk. What we perceive and what reality is totally different. Before I left, my fate, I didn't perceive what would come. But in reality, it was totally different. I didn't know the border. I never visited Tigray before that moment. But I had a friend, my schoolmate. He is from Gundet. He used to visit Tigray very often. And then he was close friend, and I discussed it with him, and he told me his intention was the same. Then we both decided. I went to Dagargis first. We stayed in Dagargis for a whole day.
Is that in Eritrea or in Tigray?
It is Gundet across Rama, between Rama and Tigray. It is in Eritrea. Then in a dark, once it started to be dark, we walked on foot all night. That is supposed to take us about 3-4 hours on day. But one night, it took us all night because we had to take the worst areas that we can't get found. Through the very steep slope mountain. It was incredible. Without any noise, we were very careful.
Were you? How many people like left with you?
Just the two of us.
Did you guys have your military uniform and weapon, or just like civilian?
No, at that moment I was civil, and he came for a break from the military. We didn't have anything. Then we crossed the border in the morning. Just before we arrived Rama, we met the militia. We didn't even see any military of Tigray or Ethiopia. Then we washed our feet and stuff in that river. We met these militias. They were not just keeping the border. They were just doing their routine life. They asked us who we are. They were a little bit suspicious. And we told them, my friend was very familiar in the area. He said to them, we're not going to tell them. We will see what is going to happen, because he had cousins in Rama. He told me that we're going to get into our cousins first and see what's our fate. And we did, and they trusted us. They asked us when we told them we are students from Adwa, and they believed us. They just let us go, and we walked around them and behind them, and we arrived at Rama.
And is it fair for me? Sorry to interrupt you. Is it fair for me to say this? I've said this many times in this show, but is it fair to say that we speak the same language, we look alike, we listen to the same music, we eat the same food, and yet you could simply sneak into Tigray, and especially if you don't have ID, you can just say, you know what? You can politely talk to them, and then they'll believe you unless you're doing something bad.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Then we visited his cousins in Rama. We had lunch. They treated us good. They were shocked how we got in. Then finally we chatted in, and they told us that the routine, what is going on now, is they're not going to hurt you. They're not going to do nothing to you. Actually, there is a camp. That's where you guys are going to go. So instead, we're going to take you to the camp, to the police station, and then they're going to transfer you through to the camp. And exactly as they told us, they handed us over. And then they treated us well. They told us that you're not prisoners, but for your safety and for our safety, we're going to give you a spot in this police station to stay for the night. Then we're going to transfer you to Adwa, and then to Aksum. Then we said, okay.
So during that time, was there a time that you felt like you guys could, either go to jail or get killed by the Ethiopian military at that time? Obviously, Tigray has been and still is under Ethiopia.
No, we got cooled down that moment. Our nervousness went down because we met his cousins, and then we were just felt like it is our home.
What did his cousin tell you guys?
Well, they were shocked us to be there. They didn't expect us. But anyways, they told us that don't worry, from now, there is a camp, there is a plan, There's UNHCR, so they're going to take you to that for their safety, and you're going to stay there. It is just regular.
And how did it feel for you guys when you realized at first you were nervous?
Oh, they were so warm for us, right? They were so passionate to help us. You can't believe it. I can't even describe it in words.
And which camp did they take you guys in?
This is something I don't want to pass. Like the security guard who was keeping us in there, he had to take us for a washroom is in the field. So in that town, there was a songs like whatever, like military songs of Shabia. We were shocked. How come the songs? You guys let them, play the songs? He was shocked when we asked him, what are you talking about? Why, it's all over, like, kill them, all that is about war. You know what the told sings. He was shocked. He told us that this is Ethiopia. You don't know this is democracy? Nobody will bother about you whether what you talk, what you say. It is their right. But in that moment, Eritreans were forbidden not to play any songs of Amharic. Look now, Amhara people are in Eritrea. The Amhara military are in Eritrea. Right? So our ignorance versus what was the reality in Tigray was totally different.
So you went into the camp, the refugee camp, and then at some point through the process, you made it to Canada. But throughout the process, what did you think of the people in Tigray, how they perceive Eritreans, how they treated Eritreans? And we know that roughly about 100,000 Eritrean refugees were at some of the camp in Tigray that right now they're part of the victim of the current war which we're going to get to before we switch into the Tigrinya program. I kind of want to just touch bases a few areas before we end the English program to switch to Tigrinya, but talk about, how the refugee camp was for you, obviously, and then how long you were in Tigray before you came to Canada, and what you think of. Let me just stop right there, and then I'll ask you another question about the refugees. But the first question is,
I'll try to make my discussion a little bit shorter and to the point. Yes, as soon as we got in Tigray, the Tigray people was very sad. They were so sad that we were leaving the country. I would say it in Tigrinya the way they were saying it. You know what it means?
Of course.
They were extremely sad. Like the cadres in Ethiopia, the Wayanis, we used to somehow suspicious the mentality we had because they are trying to brainwash us. We were suspicious that we didn't really trust them. But the people, they didn't have any connection to the government. They are very poor people. The farmers, they were heartbroken that we were leaving our country. Some of them were saying that, why are you guys leaving? Because of this idiots, because of Isaias.
Is it ever crossed to you that you guys would unite as Eritreans outside Eritrea and fight to get rid of Isaias? Does it ever cross your mind?
To myself, when I sit back, I didn't even have a thought that to do so. Because what you see is the connections of the government, the people, to the government was extremely strong. That is why it victimized the university students. The people should have been on the side of the university students. They should have overthrown this government. But the attachment was strong. People couldn't understand it. They didn't understand that they were enslaved. So in that moment, what change could you bring? It's very unlikely. The moment has to initiate you that if I do this, I could make a change. But the moment that situation wasn't right. The whole people was on the side of the government, whether you like it or not.
So, and the reason I'm kind of incorporating like the past to this is we're going to tie the present. But I think your story, you know, off the record, I told you that I left Tigray as a child when Eritreans and Tigray were fighting together to overthrow Mengistu. So you know the history, but I'm not going to take too much time for this. I want to preserve our time to go through like some of the main point here is because right now what's happened also is throughout Tigray, including Mekelle, they shut down the internet, they shut down everything. So people in the audience also are asking questions, but I'm going to get to their question. I appreciate what they're saying on the screen. I'm monitoring the screen also, but so your focus and many of the Eritrean focus that left Eritrea made it to the camp. The goal was to somehow survive for your own and figure out a way to get out of the country.
Yeah, that was the only choice.
So you left Eritrea and you got to Canada and you then start making friends with Tagaru. And I know that you have had some differences with some Eritreans that they perceived you as a I don't want to use the wrong
traitor.
word, but betraying Eritrea for speaking the truth.
Yeah. You know, I'll tell you the reactions they had when I got in here. Eritreans normally, they come and visit for refugees, they come through the government. Myself, I didn't have any clue about Canada. As soon as I came here, it was very lonely. It was difficult to adjust the first few days. Normally, people come and see people. But they told them that we came through Ethiopia, through Tigray. And then they all abandoned us. In some social, when we go, they ask us where we came from. As soon as we tell them that we came through Tigray, through Ethiopia, wow, it's all right. The reaction was very strong. I always laugh how dumb they are. Even very close friends, families and stuff, we talked and discussed. I tell them outright, I never changed my words to this point, and I will never change. We started the war in 1998. I was eyewitness in Zalambesa. Nobody wants to believe it. They want to deny it. You have to tell them what they want to hear. Right? If you don't believe me, Mike, about it, watch what Ambassador, what's his name? Andabran. He was border commission, high border commission of Eritrea. He's highly qualified about this information. If you listen his interview, what he said, I will quote it. What he said. Yes, Wayane were making maps of their own before they consult us. And they made issues around Badime. However, the Eritrean government took measure inappropriately, improportionally. So improportional measure, that means what? We started the war.
Why do you think Isaias is so reckless and has put Eritreans? I know the story, we're going to shift eventually to the Tigray crisis right now, but why do you think he's such an evil man that for 60 years Eritreans have suffered 30 years of a civil war and 30 years of dictator with one man rule, and over half of Eritrea's population has left the country, and some have died trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea and throughout the North Africa. Like, what goes to your mind when you fellow Eritreans have suffered so much for the country that you and many fellow Eritreans initially and proudly have served for freedom and independence, but you never saw that?
You know, Mike, I wish I was in his mind, but I could just speak from my own evaluation. He started war against Yemen. He left ashamed. He started war against Sudan. He left ashamed. He started war against Djibouti. One of my cousins with 5 kids died in there. He left ashamed. With big shame. And he denied all those wars. He started war against Ethiopia. It was a big shame in front of the international world, international community. And now he dug into this war. Look what he is doing. Otherwise, he live in a war. He live in dark. But what knocks me is he never said that my people or my country from his mouth. As a leader, he led the war for independence. I never saw him being proud, saying that my country or my people. I heard Mele saying, I am so proud I'm born of you, for his people. But this evil, I don't think he considers these people as his own. There is something, an attachment. Something is wrong. I don't know why. Maybe he's sick. Or he's dopaminergic that nothing is enough for him. He doesn't think Eritrea is enough for him. He's always trying to expand.
So a lot of the question that people are asking right now is why are Eritreans saying enough is enough and trying to make sacrifice to, I know it's not an easy, but from a military experience, is it really that complicated that military leaders and military personnel couldn't get together to assassinate him, overthrow him, figure out a way to get rid of him? Because obviously, I mean, it's not my business to actually use the word assassinate, but at the end of the day, when so many Eritreans have to endure such hardship, at what point does a good people come together and say, you know what, Eritreans need to rise up to the occasions and sacrifice to get rid of evil? Because at the end of the day, when you think about it, I've lived with Eritreans around, and I know many Eritreans that for so long they brag about how their country is beautiful, how strong they are, and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the way they do things, it's like it's empty bragging rights they feel they have, where their own citizens, their fellow Eritreans, are completely in a situation that I don't even want to go to detail. But when you follow Eritreans,
I understand, Mike.
thousands are dying.
You don't need to explain these details because I got you what you mean. That's what I experienced too. when I get into the military are really corrupted. And the most arrogant and ignorant people are in the military. The leaders, the useless. The brilliant Eritreans are killed in the war. He assassinated them long time ago. And those who sneaked in, the leftovers, they are in prison. And the rest are the dumb people. They think like, he tells them that, I could give you this power. You think like whatever he put them, the signs, I could rip them off, or you could even stamp them. He tells them that they are powerless. All what they do is they exploit the youngsters. You know, those leaders, they've been building houses, building palaces on the labor, on free labors of the national service. The youngsters, free labor. They work for them for nothing. Right? And then they had gardens, so wide gardens that they make them to work for nothing. They are not even allowed to pick and eat to their mouths. So they think this is like high power that they are given for granted that they can't reach. That's how I see it. And they can't think a little bit further. I hear that there was communication recently. I hear there are some friends that they have cousins. When they talk to them on the phone, they didn't even think that they're going to get into this war. The only person who knew about this was Isias. They didn't know. They were just thinking that the Ethiopian military is going to go through Eritrea and to participate in the war of Tigray. They didn't even know they were going to get into the war until they finally told that they are going to get it. I don't think they think.
So,
and also they are not the governments of, the militaries of the people. They
right.
call them Tagadalti. I don't believe that. Tagadalti meaning that somebody who is, sacrificing his precious life for the good of the people. They are working for the bad of the people. They are the cause for me to leave my country. And not only that, their kids, even their kids, has left through Ethiopia, through Sudan. Some of them died in the sea. Some of them are victims of the Sahara. They can't even save their kids. If they were conscious enough, they could have saved themselves. You're thinking like they could have taken a measure and saved the country. I don't believe so. They are useless for the country. And when I come to the people in diaspora, those people who has crisis are the ones who are supporting the government in this moment. I was in a coffee shop. I met one guy who had in his neck the map of Eritrea. I asked him, passionately I asked him his life stories. He never been even in national service. He escaped from national service and he lived in Canada, and then he go back and forth to Eritrea. Mind you, I told him, you know what? I don't need the map you have in your neck, because I can't be anybody else. I'm Eritrean. I can't be anybody else. Why do you need to show me that you are Eritrean? Because you don't even believe you contributed anything to the country, and then you're trying to reflect that you did. This is a feeling of guilty, right? And then still you are supporting the government. They didn't do nothing. If you see those guys, either they are amiche, meaning that they've been in Ethiopia and got deported by Wayane, so they are expecting revenge by the Eritrean people against the Tigray. They want to get their revenge on the cost and the lives of other people. One, or there are other people who hasn't contributed nothing to the country, but they want to take advantage of whatever resources are in Eritrea. That would be just visiting Eritrea and then have a luxurious life on top of the poor people. Immoral. They lost their morality and their humanity. Very unconscious people are helping and supporting the government at this moment. No any conscious person would support this atrocity. What has happened to Eritreans? You can't believe it. At this moment, the Tigray people and the Eritrean people are both victims. Who is benefiting? The Amhara elite. Tigray but Tigray. That's their philosophy.
And so why are we so fooled that, you know, those in Eritrea and those in Tigray, are we really that foolish to continuously argue with each other while the Amhara utilizes us? Because right now, which brings me to the point, is that I just in the last several days, I heard that Eritrea sent troops to Addis Ababa because there's internal fraction going on in Addis Ababa right now. The central government, who is unelected, is struggling to hold on to power now. So Isaias is trying to save him from being overthrown. And then there are 800 Eritrean special forces in Mekelle within this week. The entire system in Tigray, including Mekelle, now was completely shut down. So the game now is that Isaias Afwerki is fully calling all the shots throughout Ethiopia now. We have not seen Abiy Ahmed, for the record, since December 23rd. That is the last time he publicly spoke. That is more than a month. That is, give or take, about 34, 35 days ago was the last time Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia has ever came out and spoke publicly. So my question for you is, or before I ask you the question, let me say this. What I've heard, I do not have a back clarification to really back the entire story 100%, but from about 3 different sources that I've got is that the Oromo regional government has moved troops closer to Addis Ababa, and we know that Abiy Ahmed had asked for 10,000 Oromo militia to help to fight in Tigray, but the Oromo leadership refused. So Oromo outside Tigray in Ethiopia is the only fully equipped military personnel. So in the last week or so, the tension in Addis Ababa has gotten to the point where Eritrea now has to send special forces to Addis Ababa. The deputy prime minister, who is from the Amhara tribe, is trying to take control or over the country now. And along the process, the Oromo, we're not talking about the Oromo separatist movement, which is, they call them Oneg. We're talking about the Oromo regional government is now split and is preparing their troops closer to the Addis Ababa regional area. And now you got Eritrean troops inside Addis Ababa. So my point here is, who played the game here? Did Abiy Ahmed really get full to the point where Isaias now has got full control and he's calling all the shots in Ethiopia? Did he achieve his goal?
I don't think he achieved his goal. He is, I believe, to my point, he is taking desperate action to control the movements. And I don't think he's going to control, but at least he could try. When I come back to Eritreans, we have been commodities of Isaias. Just commodities. He could sell us anywhere he wants. Eritreans participated in many countries in Africa. Mind you, no question. Eritreans participated in Somalia. We've been training Somali militaries and even the Al-Shabaab. In Central Africa, Eritreans got in. In Ethiopia, now fully interfered in Tigray. It is very hard to swallow. Yeah, we are stupid enough to die for no cause. It's foolish. We have to swallow it. Eritreans are all over in diaspora. I am one of the lucky ones in Canada. There are many in prisons. I've been watching in the news in many countries that they don't want them. And the military, being as a commodities of Isaias, keeping who in Addis Ababa? Trying to be safeguarding Abiy. For what? We are fully engaged in Tigray. Look, all the atrocities against our people. I see Tigray people are our people. Now, Tigray people are in Sudan. They are supposed to be in Eritrea when they have tough time. We are the closest to them. But we didn't even harbor them with our two hands. It is very sad. One day it is going to come to us Eritreans. What are we going to be? Especially the highlands. When tough time comes, we're going to need Tagaru. That whether we like it or not, say that they are our families or not, they are the closest neighbors. One day it's going to come to us. Sudan is too far for us, right? I am the one who got well treated by Tagaru, and I'm here in Canada, and many of Eritreans has come through that without no problem because they are our people. Almost 100,000 people in the camps. They got tortured by their own government, by Isaias' military. If Isaias and this military were for their people, they wouldn't torture and burn their homes inside the camps. They committed international law against humanity. They violated the rights of refugees in second country. Even from humanity point of view, they are brothers and sisters. Who would on earth do that? Against his people. Say that Tagaru people are not their people. What about the Eritreans in the refugee? But anyways, this military couldn't defend themselves. They are even victims too, and they are victimizing other people. They are victimizing Tigrayan people. They looted everything they had. They killed innocent people. They raped women. Mind you, they are criminals. It is very shameful and embarrassing to be Eritrean in this moment.
So there are people from Eritrea and there are people from Tigray that are equally frustrated, equally angry. Eritreans, in one hand, feel that the betrayal of Isaias, they're not willing to accept it, but they're willing to pay 2% of their salary, which I know personally people in California that I knew that they were paying that 2% salary in order for them to have their family not to be executed and go to jail and all those things. And then now you have Tagaru saying, look, what we did for Eritrea and Eritreans is that when they asked for independence, we supported them 100%.
Yes.
When they fought us a bloody war in 1998 and 2000, and their government betrayed them and tortured them and jailed them, and they escaped that atrocity, we welcomed them and embraced them in Tigray.
As a people, okay?
Right. Exactly. But well, yeah, the people are the will of the government, and for instance, I think I remember like the Wayana and Shabia when they were like together fighting. Obviously, they were not big at the beginning, but they built momentum to manage and overthrow. So I think any kind of movement takes time, obviously. But I guess my question though is how long is it going to take for Eritreans to learn, in the diaspora particularly? The ones at home, I understand that technology is limited, they don't have access to the resources that we have, but those in the diaspora, specifically the Eritreans, who are that naive, and I'm sorry to say this, but that arrogant, who are unwilling to accept the shameful act that you describe that's happening in Tigray, when are they? What is it going to take for them to understand the atrocity that's happening is embarrassing? It is like what you say. It's a war crime, and they can't dance around it somehow to blame to someone else that what the Amhara have done in Tigray and what the Eritreans are doing in Tigray right now. Like what you said earlier, there will be a day that it will come back. And as Tigrawi myself, I don't believe in revenge. We're taught to forgive, but there's going to be justice. I can't just pretend or sit here to just make you feel good. I'm angry. As a Tigrawi, I have like a lot of anger at those Eritrean mercenaries. Actually, my buddy Dawid, who comes to the show, Captain Eritrea, calls them mercenaries. I agree with him completely. So what message do you have to those who never serve in the Eritrean military, who sits in a coffee table drinking beer and act like they're superior than most Eritreans and most Tagaru, when in reality, they're actually the dumbest ones?
You know what? Because I'm speaking with you, Mike, you are Tigrawi, I'm Eritrean. They might think halfway or maybe in full I'm Tigrawi too. That's why I explained that I am born and raised in Addohala, and my name is clearly, my name is Emmanuel Asgodom Gebra Messi. If they want to identify me, my origin, who I am, they could go ask in Addohala. I am not trying to be biased by no means. or no incentives. I have a good job here in Canada. I don't need nothing. I'm speaking up because of my own morality. I can't handle to be Tigray at this moment. I don't know how they are handling it. There are families with no food for 3 months, and they are being killed. All they had been looted. The water resources is being broken. It is very hard to be in position of Tigray in this moment. They don't want to understand. They don't want to accept it. Why? Because arrogance and ignorance, ego-centered people, they can't learn until they die. They insulted us because we came through Ethiopia. Not far. It wasn't long. They started bribing leaders to help them to cross the borders to Sudan and to Ethiopia. All what they care is about themselves. It is inhuman. I know so many people that all what they could think is just themselves. And they are looking to hear is to support what they believe. Whether we believe it or not, this is the reality. Unless we face the reality, we can't challenge this evil. Right? There's people, they already decided not to accept any reality. They are ignorant. Some of them are misinformed. So once they get real information, they might change. But there are some people who know the reality and they decided to live in the dark. That's their choice too. We are making excuses that the military of Isaias in Tigray are forced to do what they are doing. Yeah, they could be forced maybe to kill. How could a man rape a woman if it's not his wishes? It's not practical at all. It's not an excuse.
That's actually why my blood boils often. You know, the victim who have been chopped off, the victims who are being shot at and are dead, at least they're gone. But the young girls, the women, the pregnants, and all of those who are suffering on the hands of the Amhara and the hands of the Eritrean military, being raped repeatedly by multiple soldiers. That is where the cowardice that I don't understand. That's where, you know, the rage. I'm reading and I'm getting comments from people. Some people are, you know, sending a direct message to me, even asking me why am I even bringing Eritreans to the show, because they're just upset. And I'm just trying to, you know, explain to them, look, if we don't have a dialogue, if we don't talk to each other, how are we going to like share information? How are we going to work together? How is the diaspora going to really wake up and be one voice for the people, the 100,000 plus Eritreans inside Tigray that are suffering, the 4.5 million Tagaru who are suffering, the 60 plus thousand Tagaru who are in Sudan, the 100,000 plus Tagaru in Addis Ababa jails. I mean, you know, I think, you know, I can go on, and I have people that are like, you know, before the show that are upset, actually messaging me, asking me to not bring you on. So so I appreciate you understanding the rage the Tagar are going, because you just say you cannot stand yourself being in my shoe, and I appreciate that, and you feeling frustrated on my behalf, on Tagar behalf, and I'm glad that you were able to see firsthand from being a former military veterans in Eritrea, to go to Tigray to see the Tigray. I had my Eritrean friends who actually used to send money to their families in Tigray, in Aksum, and Shire, and throughout Tigray, actually Adwa and Adigra. I mean, all those areas, with even Mekelle, and they actually would work it out with them, where they will help them little money also to the Tagaru I'm talking about, and then the Tagaru would actually go to the camp and give the money to their Eritrean family member for Eritreans in the diaspora, is what I'm talking about. So we know that there are many Eritreans in the diaspora, that they have family members in Tigray, or have had family members that left Tigray in a good term. So I'm glad in a way that many Eritreans have saw the pure heart and the kindness of Tagaru, and I'm blessed to meet you, to be able to have you on the show. But there's a lot of healing to do. But set that aside. What's happening right now? What kind of mindset are Eritreans having right now that are going in? The troops, I understand they were falsely told that you must go kill before you get killed, but the reality doesn't match up. Eritreans have seen enough war for 60 years. At what point are they going to, I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I can only think that even an animal doesn't go to that extent of killing.
You know what? That's something we human beings forget. We are animals too. What differentiates us from animals is that small piece in our front lobe, which is the critical thinking. The only animal that thinks for further process information is human beings. We people. But that is taken away from us. Our emotional lobe is overly stimulated. Our animal being is overly stimulated. And we are behaving as animals. You know what? I'm sure you know, but I will say this. Those neuroscientists, what they say, the back of our brain is a reptile brain, which is a reflex brain. And that goes up, the center brain is a limbic brain. That means what? All mammals like dog, cat, lion, tiger, all has that emotional brain. That is the center brain. The only brain that is different for human beings is the front brain. If the central brain, the animal brain, the emotional brain is overly activated, that front doesn't become active. That's what we were doing in Sawa. That's what Sawa activates too. Turn human beings into animals. Turn them from human beings, right, into killers.
So I have one person is asking me a question. So what I have said, and I'm going to clarify this myself, obviously, and you're welcome to jump in when I at some point. But this person is asking why I'm saying Eritrean soldiers or Eritrean mercenaries that are killing civilians in Tigray. I say that, and then when it comes to the NDF, which means the Ethiopian National Defense Force, the reason I put it that way, Amhara, is very clear. So to the audience to understand, is that the Amhara militia and the Amhara civilians came to Maikadra, various area of Tigray, those who were not in the military from the Amhara came with a machete, and they chopped off women, men, children who actually were defenseless, but also did not have the strength to run away. So to be clear, and I'm not taking a person on the question, I appreciate the question that was asked here, and I want to be respectful to that person because it's a genuine and honest question. So my respectful answer to that is I'm angry at the Amhara for various reasons. One, there is in I'm not a soldier, but in war, there is a what they call rules of engagement. Specifically the Amhara did not play by the rules of engagement when they were fighting. When they were fighting the Tigray Defense Forces, they got destroyed. Okay, 180,000 Ethiopian soldiers are officially now removed from the Ethiopian payroll, officially declaring them dead. Okay, let me be clear. And those are just the paid military service. But among them, by far the majority of the Amhara militia and Amhara civilians were the ones that committed the atrocity for the first month and a half, the first 30 days at least, in Maikadra, and the list goes on and on and on. Okay, so that's why I'm saying the Amhara. Did the Ethiopian National Defense Forces I didn't say they did not commit a crime, but I'm focusing on those who commit the most atrocity. Yes, the federal forces are actually traitors. When in due time, those actually do not even require that many witnesses to have them go through the process of justice. What they did is they turned their back on Tagaru, on Tigray. Somehow Tigray was a country, which it was not. Will it become a country now? Well, if you're a dumb one, you would be asking that question. But if you have like a little bit of brain that you utilize, that is not the question. We're not questioning whether or not Tigray will become a nation. We're talking about the soldiers. Those of you who are Ethiopians listening tonight, your people, led by the Amhara militia, led by the Amhara thugs, led by the Amhara killers, led by the Amhara elite, arrogant. When I say elite, I hear that from people. I call them arrogant, dedeboch. They're the ones that that went all out, did the atrocity on my people. So that is why I am very clear. I call you out, Amharas, and I have said it before. I have challenged Eritreans. Emmanuel is one of them. He came on. He contacted me. He said, "I want to come to the show and I want to speak up," and I'm letting him speak up. I'm not filtering him. I'm not training him. There's very few of you that are questioning whether or not he's Eritrean. He's told you already. I don't need to justify that to you. Some of you asked about a video. You are delusional when you ask that because these people, Emmanuel have to survive for his life to get out of the country, let alone, you live in a fantasy world, in a world where, you can't survive a week or a month without a cell phone. We're talking about people, millions of people that don't have access to the basic things that we have in this country. So I apologize for going on a rant here, but I want to be very clear. People wake up and do a little homework. I'm pissed off at Eritrean mercenary right now. I'm pissed off at Eritrean soldiers right now because what they're doing, not only it's wrong, is they should not listen to Isaias Afwerki. He's one ugly monkey dude who should be by now gone. But he decided to unleash his rage and anger on Tagaru, and the Amharas did the exact same thing. Plus, they celebrated on the death of Tagaru. So if you're Amhara and you're pissed off, I have no room for you. I'm going to call you out when I see you. I'm calling you out on this show right now. If you have a little bit human brain, come to the show, contact him, send me a message. I'm on Twitter at Mike Casahun. Send me a messenger. We'll talk. If you're for real, I'll bring you the show. I'll let you have your say. But I'm not going to be sitting here like being lectured by the Amhara killers, by the Shabia mercenary, the Eritrean mercenary soldiers that are destroying Tigray, but also starving my people to death, murdering my people, raping my sisters, my mothers. I'm one of the son of Tigray. Okay? So I don't care if the young girl who's raped is someone that I did not know because she's from Tigray. That means when you say we're after TPLF, now not after Tigray people, you're delusional. Especially those of you Amhara that you don't know the difference. Let me make it clear to you. TPLF stands for Tigray People Liberation Front. I am TPLF. I'm hosting the show, but let me tell you something. There's no difference between TPLF and Tigray people. Tigray people means TPLF. We are Tagaru. Tigray is not your land. Tigray is not for you to mess around with. Tagaru are not gone. Tagar are not dead. Tagars are like actually rising and speaking, the truth. And we will show you why you play games on our people. Your agenda was to let Eritreans and Tagaru kill one another for you to come around and to take over Assad. You are so delusional. So this message I'm giving you, we're going to switch into Tigrinya shortly here, but that's my rant for now. I'm going to just let you say what you want to say. That way I can catch my breath, and then we can switch to Tigrinya.
Okay, Mike, I would like to add about saying Eritrean soldiers. I actually don't believe the soldiers are Eritrean soldiers. They are Isaiah's soldiers. They are working for Isaiah's agendas. They're not working for the agendas of the people. How could you say these soldiers, just because they came from the Eritrean people, it wasn't even their wishes to be in the military, but they are enslaved, they are slaves of Isaiah's. They have to believe that. They are actually lower than slaves. For a slave, you have to pay to buy a slave. In that slave period, the slave owners, they have to pay and buy them. Isaiah is getting the soldiers from their parents for free and exchange them as commodities. I wouldn't say that they are Eritrean soldiers either. If they were Eritrean soldiers, they could have stood for the interests of their people and for their country. They're not. So I'm speechless. For us Eritreans, we better be awake. This is the time. I will quote two guys, just reminding. Remember the guy called Tamrat Negara? There is another professor, Danyacho Asefa. Those people has incited that their targets is first the Tigray people and the Tigray leaders. Second is Eritrea. Right now, they're working with Eritreans against the Tigray. After destroying Tigray, their goal is to destroy Eritreans and then to have the sea and the land.
That's right. That's been my saying like for the past 30 plus years in this country. I've been telling Eritreans, you are delusional because Amharas will never go to sleep. Their goal, their main agenda is honestly to destroy Eritrea, to destroy Tagaru, and to take over Assad. There's no way of explaining it.
None. Yes, Tagaru and Eritreans, we had disagreements. We had contention. We had conflict. What's that conflict? Border conflict. Border conflict, is it going to be solved? Yes, it will be solved, only on the table. And the Eritrean people has been saying that we know our borders, we know our land, and the Tigray people has been saying that we know our borders and we know our lands. But Isaias doesn't want to get involved because that is the excuse he has to survive. We Eritreans are against ourselves. I was scared against the Eritrean military when I was back home. When I was crossing the border, I could have been shot dead if I was caught. I know 6 kids got in one hole, young kids from my town. One of them escaped and talked about them. They found them and then they shot them in one spot. So if they are killing Eritreans, who do you think this military would give a mercy?
That's right. Nobody really.
After I left, I was fortunate that I was in Canada. I stayed only 1 year in that camp in Tigray. Then my mom was in prison for about a week. Why? Because I left. Then she had to pay 50,000 Eritrean nafa so as to be relieved. Is this a government or a shifter? I'm an adult who served the military. I was in university. I was in the military. What does my mom own me? How could she decide on my behavior? Doesn't care. Right?
Right.
I heard that those military of Isaias committing crimes in Tigray are because they are coming from lowlands, they are Muslims, this and that. Nobody is free from those crimes. As far as I know, every military, any single military, has 3 cousins and 2 bombs in himself. That is 90 pistons. It takes only 1 person to kill. They could defend themselves. They could stand against justice. They don't have any excuse because my boss said this time. They are scared to die, but they are dying anyways. To the worst, after they commit a crime. Even after they die, there is no mercy, even if there is God on the top. So, I don't expect them to fight for Eritrea. They should fight for themselves first. Somebody who doesn't free himself wouldn't think the freedom of others. I care first for my own freedom. Then I care about the freedom of others, the same as myself. Crime has 2 elements. One is the action, the second is on the head. The intent. All crimes has been done in Tigray right now. To say it crime, what about the state of mind of the people who are committing those crimes, those actions? Are they going to say that we were told to do? I don't think it is an excuse. I would rather shoot myself than to shoot somebody if I believe in justice. For no cause. Right? If you believe in justice, you wouldn't kill any civilian. You would kill the person who is ordering you to kill a civilian. If you really believe in justice. Right? Nobody is going to be free anyways. You guys are killing innocent people. You will be killed eventually. They are dying for nothing anyways, and they will be killed by this government. He's going to sell them anywhere. He's selling them in Addis Ababa. He could sell them to fight against Sudan. Sudan has been helping and supporting, been means of transporting our people. Those are the only people we have in Africa. You guys going to fight against them, you're going to die. So the military of Isaias, actually they're not militaries of Eritrea. You better, number one, save yourself. Fight. If you are fighting, fight for a cause. To free yourself. You have the gun in your hand. I can't fight from Canada. All what I could say is to tell the truth. And the people in diaspora, we better wake up. Maybe they are very greedy, very selfish. I know so many people, they go back home. Eritrean people, they don't have enough to eat. Our parents, they don't have kids to supply them water. Eritrea and the highlands is just like nursing home. And they don't have somebody to supply them any. These guys, they're going to Eritrea to boost around them. They are boisterous. They have some dollars to spend them. They are actually committing lots of crimes in Eritrea. Sex trade in Eritrea with the youngsters because they have money. With desperate, they're using their needs as a weapon. I don't believe they are honest Eritreans. They are evil. They know what is happening. They are not blind, but they are taking advantage of the tough times in Eritrea. Is there any evil beyond that? Anyway, thank you, Mike. Let's close it from here.
It's chilling.
Heartbreaking.
I appreciate you. For our audience, I appreciate you joining us. We're going to take a short break. We're going to switch into Tigrinya. But before we go into our short break and switch into Tigrinya, again, I want to remind you all, primarily, I broadcast a show in English to broaden our audience, to work with our Tagaro, Eritrean diasporas, young Amhara diaspora. If you're out there listening, if you really are open-minded, born and raised in the West, you should know better. Come on, listen to various outlets and hear the baby crying, hear the innocent people that are being chopped off with a machete. We have crisis happening. Don't pretend. I can't emphasize enough. So wake up. When I start doing English broadcasting and Cyber Power of Tigray, it was actually, I was inspired by a number of young Tagaro who say, hey, Mike, we've seen you around protesting. We've seen you doing things. What does it take for you to speak up for our people in the language that they understand, which is English? And for those who were born in the Amhara region in Addis Ababa and various part of Ethiopia outside Tigray, they speak, of course, Amharic, but they don't speak Tigrinya. But they also speak English. So the solution that I felt to bring attention and awareness to the genocide, to the crisis, to the everything that we talked about, is to ensure that the younger generation understands what's happening, should not be tolerated, should not be allowed. So for those of you who are confused, And I do see some of you from the Amhara. I get your concern. I get your commenting. But I give you no space. I give you no room to argue with me with any Tigray right now when your people are massacring Tagaru. If you are not a good person. If you are, speak up. Don't hide behind your keyboard and undermine my guest by saying, oh, well, how do we know he's Eritrean? How do I know you Amhara? I know you Amhara actually because you're dead the killer. That's how I'm going to see you. So I have made it very clear. I hide nothing. I use my real name. I'll be in Portland, Oregon in 2 days, Thursday, January 28th. There's an international protest that we're going to have to let the world know that Tigray lives matter. We are going to have Eritreans. We are going to have Oromo. I'm yet to see an Amhara to come. So come and see me in Portland, Oregon. I have nothing to fear. I have nothing to be afraid of. My people are being massacred. When that happens, I come out, speak the truth with power and force. And some of you feel that's too much to take. I understand it. But you know what? When a little boy, I recently showed on this show saying he was dying, part of his body was burnt, and he was crying, saying, Tomini, Tomini, Tomini. A child, meaning I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. If you can't cry to that, if you can't have emotions to that, I just don't have any words for you. But Mekelle was mainly one of the main city that had electricity back on, internet back on. It is shut down now. Okay, we are again headed to the darkest in our history by Shabia mercenaries, by Amhara killers and thugs, coward killers are on the loose again throughout Tigray. After people who are simply saying, we just want to be left alone. They did not invade you. You can't fight. You're a bunch of chickens. I mean, I'm pointing out to you, even the Eritrean mercenaries, they can't fight. You can't go into the mountains fight because you get destroyed. You know that. You know that for a fact. And no disrespect to someone who's serving the military, but he saw it firsthand. Okay. Isaias Afwerki and Abiy Ahmed actually were convinced that they were going to go to Tigray within a very short time, within 3 days. They were just going to take over and get rid of, the leadership of Tigray that was elected by the people, for the people, by 2.7 million. They're yet to capture a single one of them, to kill a single one of them. So what do? They go after retired military veterans who were sitting in their home, taken to Eritrea and tortured, and then murdered eventually, many of them. And they say they were in the jungle fighting. No, they weren't. I mean, one of them was like a blind person, disabled person. Sabat Nega is in his 90s. He was taken to Eritrea and tortured. I can go on and on. So let me shift the gear. We're going to pause for a sec. We're going to switch into Tigray now. So bear with us. I would love for you guys to join us, please, again. So I'm going to broadcast this in Tigray in a sec. And then I'm going to be, for sure, listening to you guys. I'm going to take your questions when you post it. Keep it respectful. Keep it mindful. Call me out on things that you don't like what I'm saying as well. I appreciate you. I'll take criticism. I'm a grown man, just like what my brother Emmanuel just say. So with that in mind, I would love for you guys to join us to the Tigrinya version of our broadcasting. And then I am going to end this show. I'm going to play my Tigrinya music.